back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. Viewers, we are now switching gears to what's been going on with the with the salary increases that was revealed just last Friday in regards to our government officials, our MPs, our Prime Minister, senators, and it's of course raising a whole lot of concern. And just to give us his perspective, we are being joined by Mr. Michael Anisette, and he is, of course, the General Secretary of the National Trade Union Center, NATUC. Good morning and welcome to you, Mr. Anisette. How are you doing this morning?
I'm there surviving, and pleasant morning to you and blessings to Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you so much. Now, just to put this into perspective, so over the past couple of years or so, there was the CPO offer of a 4% increase to public servants, but we're seeing here that government officials are being given a 37% increase in their salaries. Your comments?
All right. Well, what I would like to say on behalf of the National Trade Union Center, the union I represent, Siemens Union, and all other unions, that the Salary Review Commission would have done some homework, because we have been articulating as the trade union movement that the question of 4% over 6 years, cut it. And what it does is to put workers under the economic bus. It puts workers under the financial water. And therefore, we continue to argue that there is a need to revisit the 4% that has been offered to government employees over the 6-year period. So that as a labor leader, as a citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, we have no squabbles whatsoever in the Prime Minister or the President or parliamentarians getting their increases in the salaries, because we have been asking that for workers. However, what we are saying, that you cannot build a just society, you cannot talk about social justice when the distribution of wages and income is skewed towards a certain group of people, and when the mass majority of workers, which is the government employees, are asked to make the sacrifices by getting 4%, which we see as, we call it deficit wages, because those workers cannot maintain their standard of living or do what is necessary to keep the economy rolling over.
And, if this situation was where the MPs, the parliamentarians, etc., they were being offered a 4% increase in their salaries, would that have been a concern?
Well, let me put it that way. If I'm getting $59,680 or $41,000 members of parliament, as opposed to the ordinary worker, government worker, who in some instances getting as much as $4,700. 2% on $59,680, excuse me, as opposed to 2% on the lower round of salaries. It's a disparity that we have to be concerned about, because that income disparity is what is causing the inequality within our society, and therefore we are not comparing apples with apples. We would like to see, all right, a higher increase for the ordinary worker, a higher increase for the public servants, the 12% for the dock workers, the 9% for the NIB workers, and all government daily rated workers, the IMA workers, and all the other workers get it just due. And may I make a point, please, that within Trinidad and Tobago, the private sector, all right, which is another competitive force, have been making their increases a minimum of 6% over the 3-year period, and in some instances as much as 12 and 14 percentage points. And the question that we have to ask ourselves as Tobagonians, how it is that the private sector can sit down and negotiate on time with the respective unions, but the government inevitably finds it impossible to negotiate on a timely basis. And I raise the issue of time value of money, meaning that if I get my increases 10 years after, the value of that money means nothing to me because I cannot buy the goods and services I would have been able to buy 10 or 12 years ago with a 2% increase in 2023 or 2024. So those are economic realities that we must pay attention to. Those are the kind of principles that we want to engage the government in. Those are the kinds of concept that we want to engage Trinidad and Tobago in, because we believe in the national trade union movement that social justice must be the order of the day, and we must afford our citizens, and more so the working class and the public servants who are the middle class, who are being wiped off of the economic map. We must find a way to bring back that kind of equity and fairness as it relates to income equality in Trinidad and Tobago.
Do you think that the government, these parliamentarians and so on, do you think that they are in touch with the plight of the average man on the street or the average public servant and the challenges, especially when you talk about daily rated workers and so on, and the challenges they face on a daily basis to ensure that they can provide a living for themselves and their families?
No, I think that the government, the ministers, and in particularly the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister and the Cabinet, they are so far from the truth, the economic reality that is visiting people. And I want to speak to Tobago, because the Tobago cost of living is much higher than that
Yes.
of Trinidad and Tobago, given the realities that Tobago faces in terms of goods and services. And that is a point that no one can deny. And therefore, we are saying that wages must be reflective of the true economic and financial realities that workers are facing. We cannot build a society when you have what we will want to call wage deficiencies, which causes workers, to live from salary to salary, and some cannot even make it from salary to salary, given the demands on the finances that they have to do the ordinary living standards that is required of an ordinary citizen. And then you see, and if we don't have that kind of conversation, right, and if we do not realize that our society would have gone into this situation with crime, well, we have to ask ourselves the question: what is really the product of crime? If we have a society where children are leaving school and the cognitive skills is not there, they can hardly read and write, what do you really expect as a society? So then we are saying that there's a need to build a fairer and more equitable society, and that can only be had when we start to pay attention to the income inequality and the wealth inequality that is frightening and growing year by year in Trinidad and Tobago.
So at this point in time, what should the reaction be from the population as we are watching the situation unfold? We're watching the wage disparity as we are, struggling, because if we're really honest with ourselves, there's a whole lot of the population that's still recovering from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic might be over, but the impact is far-reaching.
Yeah, you are so correct, because there is so much economic fallout that was occasioned by the COVID-19 that we have not really sat down and addressed as a people, as a society, as a government. And we will continue to argue in the labor movement that is the government fiscal and government policies in terms of the redistributive mechanism in terms of the labor market is what pushes us in a particular direction. Are we satisfied that what is happening is the kind of society that we want to build? And I think we have to be brutally frank, because this is for our children. We cannot pretend that in Trinidad and Tobago there isn't a fact which cannot be argued by anyone, that there's a 10% people in Trinidad and Tobago who benefit immensely, as much as 75, and in some instances more than 80% of the wealth and income in Trinidad and Tobago, where the mass majority of our workers, the public servants who were supposed to be the middle class in the olden days, they are being wiped out. And I'm therefore, we have to sit down and we have to have that kind of conversation. We cannot get bogged down in the materialism. We have to build a society where fairness, social justice, equity is the cornerstone of what we want to do, and then the question of how we deploy our assets, which is the people, right, which is one of our greatest assets, our human resources, how we deal with that to ensure we have the kind of society that we want to build to carry Trinidad and Tobago to the other level of the economic ladder.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much, Mr. Anisette. And I don't know, before we go, I don't know if you have a few more words that you want to leave with us in regards to the situation.
Okay, no, I will simply want to say, and I will make this cry. You understand that listen, there are dock workers who are waiting for the 12%. There are NIB workers who are waiting for the 9%. There are workers, MTS workers, other government employees who even haven't started negotiation because the Minister of Finance have refused or is unwilling or has neglected his responsibility to give directives to the boards to start those negotiations. We believe that is unfair, and we believe we need to go back to the table to find a reasonable resolution to what is happening in Trinidad, so that the tripartite partners, like is done in Singapore, can sit down and genuinely sit down and build a pathway for a better Trinidad and Tobago. We cannot continue to have this division. We cannot continue to have this frightening income inequality and wealth inequality, which is driving poverty and which is driving crime and the other social effects that we are seeing within our society. So there's a need for serious talk in Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anisette, for your perspective on this matter. And viewers, well, that's how we're going to have to wrap the show this morning. I want to thank you all for joining us. It was certainly a wonderful time being with you this morning. And please stay tuned for Tobago updates throughout our social media pages on Facebook and YouTube, also the website. And of course, you can log on to our programming daily 24/7 on channel 102 on Amplia to get the latest updates on all these things that are happening, especially as it relates to this oil spill and this vessel, the Gulf Stream vessel that ended up in our waters. Listen, this is not, we probably are not going to get answers right away. This is going to be an ongoing situation because the situation runs very deep into the underworld. That's as much as I can say for now on that. But I want to thank you so much for joining us. Hope you have a safe and wonderful day, and we will see you again tomorrow. Tobago is number